Eloise.
Hi, Anita. Welcome. I hear you've got some fantastic news about your book.
Yes, it's on the New York Times bestseller list.
That is so exciting. Tell me about that. How long's it been in the stores for over there?
Well, 2 weeks after it came out, it made it into the New York Times bestseller list. I was over the moon. It entered at number 8 it came out on March 1.
Yeah.
March 15th, it went into the New York Times bestseller list.
Oh my goodness.
And yeah, it entered at number 8, and then a week later it was in number 5.
Wow, that's so amazing. I mean, I know you've got an amazing story to tell, and it's all recorded in that book. But let's just go back a little bit because, for the sake of people watching here tonight, since Dr. Wayne Dyer discovered your story, our friend, and encouraged you to put it in a book, obviously amazing things have been happening for you. Can you just... I want to give everybody a sense of your story, like just how sick you were. Obviously, you had cancer. The story in the book is about you getting cancer. To cut a long story short, we know you had 13 cancerous tumours in your body, at least, some of them the size of lemons. And you had a full-time carer. Your husband was doing a lot of full-time caring for you as well, Danny, who's a gorgeous man. And you were on heavy amounts of morphine. Can you just give us a sense of how sick you were and I guess what happened to you that night, the night before you ended up slipping into a coma, if you could take us back there?
Sure. My body was completely wasted away. I weighed only about 84 pounds. My muscles were wasted away. I had a fever. My lungs were filled with fluid. I was connected to oxygen, piped oxygen. I was being cared for at home by a full-time nurse. I had huge open skin lesions because the cancerous tumors were bursting through my skin and opening up my skin in several places in my body. And I couldn't lie down without choking because I would choke on my own fluid because my lungs were so filled with fluid. And I was in total pain and discomfort. And I hadn't slept properly in a long time. And I told the nurse to give me an extra heavy dose of morphine so that I could get some sleep because I was just so uncomfortable. And I felt as though I was like ready to let go now, ready to let go of life because I'd been fighting and fighting so hard to stay alive and to get well. But now I was ready to surrender, to give up because I was just too tired, too sick, and too weak.
Yeah, you'd had cancer for a few years, was it, by that
4
stage?
years, 3 years and 10 months at that point, yes.
So, yeah, you'd been fighting for a while. And then, so you asked the nurse for that extra heavy dose of morphine, and I believe the next morning, Danny found you in a particular state. Can you tell me about that?
Sure. I didn't wake up. My eyes were shut. And my body had swollen just completely. My arms and legs and my face was just completely swollen. And when he saw me in that state and I wouldn't open my eyes, he was really shocked and he called my doctor right away. And my doctor told him to rush me to the hospital. And he said he would be there to greet us when we entered the hospital. And this was a different hospital from the one I'd been going in and out of. He told Danny to rush me to this hospital, which had like one of the best cancer centers in Hong Kong.
Wow. And so you arrived at hospital, and how were you received there? Obviously, you were not fully present and conscious at this stage. You were having your own experience, but I know, having spoken to Danny, that the doctors, they were almost angry because it had been left too late for you to be helped.
Yes, because this was a whole other team of doctors that were there. So my doctor was there, but he was there with this whole other team of doctors. And that team of doctors who were seeing me for the first time, the main oncologist in that team, the minute she saw me, she said, "Why have you brought her in so late?" And she was really surprised. She said, "It's too late to save her. She only has a few hours." And she said, normally we don't even accept patients in this condition.
Yeah.
Because she knew basically I'd come there to die. And she said, we don't normally accept patients in that condition at all. But my doctor and my family said that, well, is there anything you can do? So they admitted me, and they took me to the ICU, the intensive care unit.
Yeah.
And then they just started administering, like they started putting tubes and connecting me to their oxygen and putting a food tube, and they started to connect all kinds of tubes. Actually, one of the first things they did was that they put my body through the MRI, the scanner machine, the MRI machine tube, to see exactly where all the tumors were and everything.
Wow. And again, you were sort of or you were not really in a conscious, you'd gone into a coma at this stage.
Yeah.
I know that the doctors were discussing things around you. I know Danny was talking to your mother who got there, and family were exceptionally worried that you were about to pass away, and that was going to be the end of I guess your life in the physical form, which obviously they would miss you terribly. So everyone was highly emotional. There's lots going on while all this chaos and emotion and drama was happening in the hospital for you, the people that were helping to try and revive you. What was actually going on with you? Because this is where it gets really interesting. Can you tell us what was happening?
Well, for me, I wasn't even aware I was in a coma, because I could hear, see, feel everything that was happening all around me. I was aware of everything everyone was saying and everything the doctors were doing. I was aware that they were rushing me into the ICU, and everything they were saying, even conversations that were taking place well beyond earshot, not just around my physical body, but well beyond and down the corridor. I was aware of everything everyone was saying, even there. And
when you talk about around the corridor, down the corner, out, in different parts of the hospital, you're talking about doctors that were talking about your condition far, far away from where you actually were.
Yes. Talking to my family members about my condition.
And what were they saying?
They were saying that these were my last hours, and that I probably wouldn't even make it through the night. And that they were going to do what they could, but they didn't think I would make it. Like, basically, they were telling my family to inform anyone they needed to inform that these were my last hours.
Wow.
And my organs, they said my organs had already shut down.
Wow. Okay. And what else? So you were in a coma, but you were feeling, you were seeing, you were hearing, you were starting. Did you have a sense that what was going on was sort of different or kind of extraordinary? What else was happening for you?
I was actually feeling incredibly light and free, and for the first time in all this time of having cancer, I actually felt completely healed. I was free of all my pain. It was just the most amazing, liberating feeling ever that I'd ever experienced.
And just to clarify, can you tell us, the way you've described it to me before is it was like you were expanding out of your body. So while you were dying, in terms of what the machines were saying to the doctors, can you explain to me what was happening to, your soul, if you like? What was the feeling of all of that?
Yeah, it was as if my consciousness was just expanding and expanding, and my consciousness was huge. It was like my body was this small, insignificant, limp thing that was just lying there in the bed. But my consciousness just expanded, first of all, to take over the whole room, and then beyond the room, and just kept expanding beyond the hospital, until I became aware of things beyond. Like, I became aware of my father, who had deceased, who had died 10 years prior to that. I became aware of his presence, and my best friend, who had died 2 years prior, to that experience. I'd lost my best friend to cancer. I became aware of her presence as well. And all I could feel in that realm was like I was surrounded by this unconditional love. And it was like, it was really unconditional in that for the first time in my life, I felt I didn't have to work at being lovable, or I didn't have to do anything to deserve it. This love was mine just because I existed, no other reason. It was just such an amazing feeling. And when I encountered my father, all I felt from him was unconditional love. And during my lifetime, he and I had always been at odds because I'm Indian and I grew up as a Hindu, but I went to a school, I went to a British school, and my parents had very strong Hindu values which they tried to impose on me, such as they wanted me to have an arranged marriage. And a lot of other cultural values that they wanted me to have, but I'd always fought them on these things. So my father, very often we didn't see eye to eye, and I always felt that I disappointed him and I let him down. But when I was in that realm, and when I felt my father's presence, all I felt from him was unconditional love, and I seemed to understand that everything that he had done in this lifetime, he had done out of love for me, and he loved me in the only way he knew how. And I understood that all these cultural impositions and things like that, they are part of being here in the physical body, and this is. And we do the best we can, but in that realm, when we are without our bodies, all excuse me, all I could feel was unconditional love.
So is that an experience of, I guess you're talking about it in the sense of cultural impositions in terms of, your dad's Hindu beliefs and cultural kind of idiosyncrasies, I guess. I guess what we're talking about, if you apply that to everybody, is any kind of conditioning, any kind of social norms, any kind of expectations from around us. What you were experiencing when, you crossed into this other realm, I guess, was that it's all just bullshit, really, pardon my French, but and so many of us live our lives in fear of those things as though they're the be-all, end-all. So I'm just, I'm trying to get a sense for people, about, I guess, the wisdom of what you were experiencing while you were over there. Can you talk a bit more about that?
Yeah, sure. In fact, if I can use the metaphor of the warehouse, what it felt like in that realm is that there's so much more than what we actually understand. So if you can imagine that you are going through life, is like having just one small torchlight in the dark. And so everything is dark, and you're making your way through life just by the beam of one small torchlight. And so wherever you go, you're going depending on where you shine your beam. And you think that what exists in life is only what the beam of your torchlight shines on. Sorry. So we believe that we think that only what exists is only what the beam of our torchlight has shined on. And we don't realize that so much more exists, but we just haven't shined our torchlight on it. Now imagine if all the lights in the warehouse goes on, and that's what it felt like when I had my near-death experience. It was like all the lights went on, and I couldn't see the ends of the warehouse. This warehouse was so huge. It was so huge. And it's like there are shelves and shelves lined with all kinds of different things. And they all exist simultaneously. But I had never known they existed before because I had gone through life with just the beam of one torchlight. So the only thing I can be aware of at any one time is what my torch is shining on. But in that realm, I realized that there is so much more than we are capable of understanding, much, much more than we can ever be aware of. And all of these truths, they exist simultaneously. So even though I've come back into life with one torchlight, at least now I know that there is all these possibilities are all existing simultaneously, because in that realm, it felt as though there was no time or no space. It was like all time is simultaneous, runs simultaneously. Whereas when we come back and express in this physical realm, we see time as being linear. And actually, it's our mind that's processing time as being linear, one moment running after the next. When I was in that realm, there was this incredible clarity, but it felt as if whatever I put my focus on came into my awareness immediately. And it didn't matter, like time and space didn't matter. It was no, they were irrelevant. So, but in this realm, we need things to be in linear time to be able to understand it. So this is what it really felt like. So now when we are in this life, for example, you were just talking about culture. People are living in their own culture. It's like they're living by the beam of one torchlight, and that's all they know. And that's all they've shone their light on. And so they believe that whatever they've been brought up to believe is truth. And so when they don't live up to that truth or meet the expectations of their culture, they feel fear, or they feel inadequate, or they feel that they're letting people down. What we don't realize is that there are so many different truths existing simultaneously. There are so many possibilities.
So what does that mean for us, for those of us that are here with one beam of torchlight? Does that mean that whatever we decide is going to be the truth that we live becomes the truth that exists? Or, what does that mean in practical terms for us here on Earth?
Okay, in practical terms, what I'm saying is that we tend to shine our torchlight where other people tell us to shine it. And someone says, this is what you should do, or this is where you should shine your torch. And so that's where we shine it. And so we're not aware of all the other things that exist simultaneously, because we're focused. We've been told, shine it here. And so we shine it there. And whatever we see in that beam, we think, okay, that is the truth. Now, what I tell people is that the most important thing is to be authentic to our own self. So when we learn to actually find our own joy in life, like get in touch with our emotions, start doing what we feel brings us joy. So in other words, that's where we need to shine our torchlight, not where other people keep telling us, shine it there, do that, go here. Get in touch with your authentic self. The way to be authentic is first, it's to love yourself, because I spent a lifetime being a people pleaser. I used to beat myself up. I used to put myself down. I used to put myself last. And in that realm of clarity, I understood that that is what caused my cancer. I lived a life of fear, total fear of not meeting other people's expectations, of always believing that I'm not good enough, that I need to work hard at being lovable, that I need to work hard at being more spiritual. In that realm, I realized that we are amazing, magnificent beings, and our only purpose is to be ourselves and to realize this truth that we are amazing, magnificent beings who are here in this physical realm to express ourselves. And our only purpose is to be ourself and to express that self. And in doing that, you are then shining your torchlight to the path that is most appropriate to you, not where other people are telling you you should be.
And that's really difficult for a lot of people, and women in particular, I think. But one of the things I think we haven't gone into yet, which really made this come to life for me in the other chats that we've had, was when you were in that hospital room, when your body was, your consciousness was expanding, or you were expanding into your full consciousness, into the hospital room, into the corridors, outside of the hospital. I know you were even on a plane with your brother in India, at simultaneously getting on the plane with him as he travelled back to Hong Kong. Was it Hong Kong? Yeah, back to Hong Kong. Yes. to see you in the hospital. And one of the things that you've talked about, that experience, was one of oneness. You became one with everything, with your brother, with the doctors, with everything in the hospital, with your dad, with your deceased best friend, with everything, with wisdom, with everything. And when and I'm going to ask you to talk about that in a minute, but that experience in relation to the fact that our only job is to be ourselves here, here in the physical realm. Your other insight, and very powerful insight, is that because we are all one, if we have the opportunity and we honour ourselves and we be ourselves and we follow what makes us happy and we make ourselves happy, because we're all one, that happiness that we feel and that passion and that connection and that authentic experience of being then makes everybody else happy as a result of the fact, because we are all the same thing anyway. Can you talk about that a little bit?
Yes, sure. Yeah, in that realm, I felt that we are all connected, and it felt as though our physical bodies create the illusion that we're all separate. So in that realm, when I had spilled out of my physical body, it was like I could feel the feelings of everybody else, as though I became them. I became my brother who was frantically coming to see me, and I became my husband who was sitting by my bedside, whispering to me, was holding my hand the whole time. And I became my mother who was praying for me to come back, to not die. So it was like I was connected to every single one of them, and every doctor, every nurse that was tending to me. It felt as though we're all connected, we're all part of the one consciousness. And in that realm is when I realized how I had been so hard on myself during this lifetime, how I had always forsaken myself. That's when I understood that if we are all connected, whatever I'm doing to myself, I'm doing to the whole. Whatever I want for you, I need to first do for me. And when I do it for me, by extension, I'm actually doing it for everybody. If I'm able to love myself, then the whole world will love me. And also, I will have more love to give others. If I deplete myself, if I'm constantly beating myself up and depleting myself all the time, I have nothing. I'm actually doing it to the whole. And also, I have nothing to give you or anybody else. I found that the most important thing, I used to think that I had to work at forgiving people. In my near-death state, I realized the only person that I hadn't forgiven was myself. And when I forgive myself of everything, and if I'm in complete and total acceptance of myself, every aspect of myself, if I can love myself unconditionally, what happened is I found there was nothing to forgive towards anyone else. I have nothing but compassion for anyone else. If I can love myself unconditionally, it's easy to love everybody else unconditionally.
It's such an important and such a powerful message. I just, I think, many of us, fall into that funny and, just crazy space of that feeling like it's selfish, to put your own needs first, to love yourself first, to do what's right for you first. And I'm very passionate. I mean, tonight at Soul Sessions, we're doing Being You. you know, you're one of the speakers, and then obviously Dr. Dane here, who we've got coming up next, is incredible in terms of this same sort of message, and you know, he does that through access consciousness, obviously, but you know, it's such a privilege to speak to you and hear your story, somebody who has actually passed for a period of time onto the spirit world, kind of collected all the wisdom that most of us are tapping into here and there and trying to get more of, and then brought it back for us. So I guess my question, one of my final questions, is how's it going for you now that you're back in the physical realm with all these, you know, enlightened experiences and messages for everyone? How do you find the practice of that for yourself, of self-love and putting you first, and, you know, how does that work? You know, you're obviously serving the world at the same time, but how are you bringing all those back into your real life?
It's interesting, but I actually love my life now. And what's really interesting is that in the past, before my near-death experience, I used to try really hard at being selfless, at being more spiritual. I used to try really hard at pleasing other people and being of service. And now I don't even try anymore. In fact, what I do is all I do is honor myself, be myself, and always just come from a place of what I think is being authentic to myself. I find joy in life. I do what makes me happy. I do what brings me joy. And it seems that more people are telling me that I am being of service to the planet and what I'm doing is great. And more people have told me that I'm loving now. Whereas I don't feel I'm making an effort to love anybody right now. All I'm doing is just being authentic and loving towards myself. And so it's kind of a dichotomy. And I think that everything that we have learned is completely back to front. That's what I realized. Nobody ever told me that when I was growing up, that it's more important to love yourself, and if you are happy, if you spend your days doing what makes you joyful, you will be a joy to be around for other people.
Wow. And I mean, that sounds like a pretty good departing or parting message, but if you had one final message or one message for everyone, what would that be?
That would be to do what makes you feel joy, to realize that you don't need to work at being more spiritual because you already are spiritual. You cannot not be, and you are everything you're trying to attain. Don't take life too seriously. Laugh at yourself. Eat chocolate. The spiritual path is supposed to be fun. It's not supposed to be heavy.
Oh, thank you so much. Mwah.
Oh, thank you. It's such a pleasure.
Thank you so much. And we'll speak really soon, but bye for now.
Bye, Eloise. Thank you.
Bye, Anita.